So let's start our session, folks, with respect to newspapers. Now, Indian Express. First page, folks. Law panel seeks view on UCC within 30 days. Now, we have already discussed about three things with respect to this law panel. If you remember, we had talked about sedition. We had talked about there is this another news that we had talked about, which was related to that property which cannot be left vacant for a considerable adverse possession. Yes, adverse possession. Property which cannot be left vacant for significant amount of time. And then the third thing that coming out of the 22nd Law Commission is that it has elicited views from the Union government regarding UCC. Now I want you to read about UCC. Some of the states in India already have incorporated it in its statutes. For example, the state of Goa has and it had implemented UCC very long time back. Now, what is this Uniform Civil Code? Now, in India, there are certain matters with respect to which. Before I start this, folks, some people have been demanding on YouTube that I go bilingual. Is it an issue with anyone if I go bilingual? सबको हिंदी समझ में आता है? Is there anyone who doesn't understand Hindi? Okay. So when we talk about UCC, we are talking about personal laws. What are these personal laws that we are talking about? We are talking about personal laws of marriage, personal laws of divorce, personal laws of maintenance, personal law of adoption. So ये जो personal laws हैं, शादी से लेके divorce से लेके और उसके बाद क्या कहते हैं क्या adopt करने को लेके ये सारे जो पर्सनल लॉज हैं, इनको हर किसी का हर रिलीजन के अपने अपने खुद के लॉज हैं. देयर इज नो यूनिफॉर्म लॉ अक्रॉस द बोर्ड. फॉर एग्जांपल, recently the Supreme Court had made triple talaq, which is a personal law, unconstitutional and violative of some basic rights that women have. So इस तरीके से हमारे पास हार्मोनियस नहीं है ये पर्सनल लॉज. हिंदुइज्म के केस में हमने ऑलरेडी हिंदू क्या कहते हैं जो मैरिज कोड है और हिंदू कोड है, हमने उसको फॉलो किया. तो हिंदू जो कोड है वो ऑलरेडी कोडिफाइड है थ्रू द हिंदूज बिल. मतलब हिंदू जो जिसकी वजह से इनफैक्ट बी आर अम्बेडकर हैड ऑल्सो रिजाइंड फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट. तो वी हैव दीज लॉज दैट आर देयर जो रेगुलेट करते हैं नॉट जस्ट फॉर हिंदूज बट इट ऑल्सो रेगुलेट्स फॉर अदर रिलीजन्स लाइक उसके अंदर हम कई बार हम सिख को भी उसके अंदर इनकॉर्पोरेट कर लेते हैं. बट द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट वी हैव वेरी वास्टली डिफरेंट रिलीजियस लॉज. एंड हमारे यहाँ पर the constitution under article 44 in DPSPs, it says that the states should endeavor to have a uniform civil code. So ये सिविल कोड की बात पिछले कई सालों से चल रही है. आई ऑल्सो वॉन्ट यू टू रीड अबाउट द हिस्ट्री. इंडिया में पहली बार सिविल कोड की जो बात थी वो 1980s में आई थी. एंड वी द सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैड ट्राइड टू ब्रिंग सम काइंड ऑफ यूनिफॉर्मिटी इन पर्सनल लॉज. और उसके लिए एक बहुत फेमस जजमेंट था, शाह बानो जजमेंट, जो अभी जो CGI हैं उनके फादर ने दिया था. ही वॉज ऑल्सो अ CGI, D.Y. Chandrachud, or I'm forgetting his name. So he was Justice Chandrachud ने 1980s में दिया था और उसको फिर उसके बाद राजीव गांधी गवर्नमेंट ने उसको नलिफाई करने के लिए अलग से एक एक्ट बना लिया था. So अब the Supreme Court is, or अब now the law panel is seeking that all these states should think, and the public in general should think about what do they expect out of uniform civil code. And this has also been news with respect to Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand is also mulling over this issue. So I want you to read on this particular issue. What is civil code? Which states have it? How have they applied it? So all of this information you should have. It's an important topic for your society or a topic. Then 3 years after Galwan, LAC Infra troop presence and op logistics ramped up. So You might have heard about this, that 3 years ago, the Chinese, there was some Chinese incursion into Galwan region. Now what we have done is we have because of that we have increased our vigilance over the border areas. We've started building huge infrastructure through an organization called as BRO, Border Road Organization, and then number of troops that we have mobilized there have also increased. The number of armor regiments that we have mobilized there have also increased. And but ultimately this issue has to be resolved. Both nations are nuclear nations. This issue has to be resolved by in an agreement manner. But what is China doing is something called as salami slicing. This is a word that we use in negotiation in law, salami slicing. That what you do is, in case of salamis, you get very small portions. So what China is trying to do is बहुत छोटे छोटे पोर्शंस इंडिया के, कभी यहाँ पर, कभी डोकलाम में, कभी कभी अरुणाचल प्रदेश में, कभी लद्दाख, ले लद्दाख वाले पोर्शन में. इट इज़ ट्राइंग टू चेंज दी स्टेटस क्यू बाय जो अनमैंड, जो अनपेट्रोल्ड वाले जो रीजन्स थे उस पर जाके दे आर सेटिंग अप देयर कैंप्स and then challenging the existing agreements that we have. ठीक है. So this is one area. उसके बाद LAC के बहुत सारे areas के बारे में बात करी हुई है. I want you to read about this all these passes that are there, that strategic passes. ये हमें passes सारे याद करने पड़ेंगे. और I've already told you to buy a book called प्रेम पटेल. प्रेम पटेल में passes के ऊपर एक पूरा section है. I want you to learn about these passes which are available in Jammu and Kashmir, especially the passes that we are sharing with China. So read about this. और फिर हम और कौन से इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर जो हम क्रिएट कर रहे हैं, यू कैन रीड दैट. ठीक है. सो दिस इज वन न्यूज़. Then the second news, cap doesn't fit. Now cap doesn't fit is based on remember the news that we had read yesterday, that the government has put on stock limits on wheat and tur and urad. So these stock limits have been put because of the fact that the government is worried about the inflation that might take place because we have a deficient rainfall. We have a delayed rainfall, I would say, and right now we have a deficient rainfall as well. But these are too early days to comment on it. I can't show you this today, but there is this data set that I show that I was teaching this ITS batch day before yesterday. So I was showing them Rabi cropping data, through which you can actually, or Rabi or Kharif cropping data, through which you can actually see that whether there has been a significant impact on agriculture or not. But having said that, right now the monsoon is at a 52% below normal rainfall. Now today's work, I want you to read on what is this long period average, LPA. LPA, when you talk about monsoons, when we talk about that there is a drought, there is a hydrological drought, whether there is some meteorological drought. First of all, you should know the difference between a hydrological drought and a meteorological drought. The other thing is, when you say that there is a drought, how do you define it to be a drought? Okay, so you read that. Okay, when you're reading this on the weekend, you have time, also read how do you define a heat wave in India. ठीक है, ये मैंने ऑलरेडी आई थिंक 2-3 महीने पहले कवर किया था when we were talking about that Ahmedabad deaths that happened in Ahmedabad a few months ago. So read about that as well. That's one topic that I'm expecting can be asked in your mains this year. So now the issue is, and अब आपको ये कुछ ट्रेंड्स फोक्स पता होने चाहिए, कुछ डेटा है. रिमेंबर मैंने आपको कहा था कि कई चीज़ें आप अलग से शीट पे लिखोगे. एग्रीकल्चर, इकोनॉमी का तो डेटा आपको यूजुअली ऐसे ही मैनेज करना पड़ता है. अब एग्रीकल्चर में हमारा जो टोटल प्रोडक्शन रहता है, दैट इज़ ऑफ फूड ग्रेन्स इज समवेयर अराउंड 330-340 मिलियन टन्स. ठीक है, कई जगहों पे आपको लाख टन्स भी मिल जाएगा. सो डोंट गेट कन्फ्यूज्ड. ठीक है, तो डोंट गेट कन्फ्यूज जब आप मिलियन टन और लाख टन्स देखो. ठीक है, फर्स्ट थिंग इज दैट. द सेकेंड थिंग इज Because of this fear of El Nino, the government has started to put certain restrictions on stockholding, which actually goes against the kind of farm laws that they were introducing. Among the three farm laws that the government had introduced, one of the farm laws was with respect to Essential Commodities Act, and that Essential Commodities Act was talking about the fact that the government will not intervene into the market. The government will not put any kind of restrictions in terms of stockholding, and the government is right now moving exactly opposite to what they had promised. Just because the farm laws did not go through, you had to roll back your farm laws. That doesn't mean that you will you will go back to the promise that you were making. So the government has right now put stock limitations, which basically which creates a disadvantage to wholesalers and retailers, that they can only procure, and they can only have some amount of wheat and all these commodities with them. Now, one thing, we have one data point that we approximately have 330 million tons of food. The other thing is that this year we have already procured 26 million tons, and last year we had around 18 million tons. So with respect to last year, we have already exceeded that, but it is less than the 43 million tons that we did in 2021-22. Now, in 21, why did we have so much of wheat? Because of the Russia-Ukraine war, the government had procured huge amounts of food and then exported it, because we were a major player of export, because no food was coming from Ukraine. This year again, we are expecting that the amount of food that will come from Ukraine will be less because of, can someone give me the reason? We've already done that in international affairs.
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Oh, the answer is already here. The answer is because of the dam issue. Because of this destruction of the dam, there's going to be environmental implications, agricultural implications, and remember, this country is one of the food bowls of the world. ठीक है, यहाँ पर जो एग्रीकल्चर होता है उसको हम प्रेरीज बोलते हैं. ठीक है, तो प्रेरीज ही बोलते हैं, स्टेपीज बोलते हैं. हम जस्ट चेक, स्टेपीज बोलते हैं, प्रेरीज बोलते हैं. हम लिटिल हेजी विद रिस्पेक्ट टू माय ज्योग्राफी राइट नाउ. सो एंड वहाँ पर जो सॉइल मिलती है, that soil is called as chernozem, which is the best suited soil for wheat production. So अब वहाँ से क्योंकि कम आएगा, इसलिए वर्ल्ड के अंदर अगर कमी होगी, एंड द गवर्नमेंट इज ट्राइंग टू प्रोक्योर कि अपने पास हमारे पास खाना सफिशिएंट हो, स्पेशली इन अ प्री इलेक्शन ईयर. So with this, all this background, you can then study this article and then read about it. This is actually going against the norms of governance that you were promising in agriculture, reforms that you were promising in agriculture in last 2 years. Then, in full flow, Sudhansh Pant. Now, the World Bank is now revising its ease of doing business index. So there's this index called as ease of doing business index, but the World Bank had to discontinue it because there were allegations, and it was accepted by the World Bank that these rankings were being manipulated in favor of China. Now the RBI also the World Bank also comes up with other indexes. I had already told you that you need to have a page with you where you will write all the indicators published by all multilateral institutions. So one of the institutions that you need to note down is World Bank. World Bank comes up with Logistic Performance Index, and in that index we have moved to 44th position. And not just that, we have moved to 38th rank. But in terms of international shipping, we have moved from 44th position to 22nd position. And it is because of the fact that we have been able to improve the operations of the ports. And one of the reasons for improving the operations of the ports is because of the number of schemes that you have in the port sector. The other is the PPP programs that you have been having, public-private partnerships. Now, I want you to do a little bit of research again. I want you to read about the 12 major ports that we have, okay, and the other minor ports that we have. Which state has how many ports? You also see that, and which is the deepest port? You also see that. Then Apart from that, what else? Uh, which are the private sector ports? Which is the first private sector port, and which are the ports which are under PPP right now? Okay. So read about all of these things, folks. Now, one of the performance indicators of port is the average turnaround time. Basically, the amount of time that is taken by vessels to basically load off and load in, and in how much time they are able to turn back. So on all these parameters, India has been doing really well, folks. In the last few years, we've put up a lot of digitalization, a lot of infrastructure support in ports, and that's why this is even matching that of developed countries, these parameters. Our capacity has increased from around 871 metric tons, million metric tons, to 16-17 million metric tons, which is basically within the next in the last 7 odd years, we have doubled our capacity of handling cargo. Another feat that we have done. Then read about these schemes that has helped the turnaround. We have also been greening our ports. The operation should be there should be a lot of renewable energy to be used there. So you have Harit Sagar Green Port. Then you have there was another. Then apart from that, the government has also amended the Major Port Authorities Act. I want you to read about that, and Vessels Act. So all of these acts have also been amended to make it more business friendly. So this article is about how India's port infrastructure has been boosted in last few years. The other articles are not so important, but you can directly read about this article, Learning in a Cluster, by Vivek Debroy. Vivek Debroy happens to be the chairman of the Economic Advisory Council, and today he has written 3 articles in all the newspapers that we are going to read. He's written an article in Indian Express, also in Hindu, as well as in Business Standard. So this is based on the NIRF ranking, and what it says is, so you can read the article, but I'll tell you what is the most important part. The most important part is that we have 44,000 colleges in India, but among those colleges, around only 24-25% have enrollment of more than 100 students. So in fact, we have large number of small colleges which are unrecognized, in the sense that there is no peer review mechanism that is happening there. Then around 50% of the colleges have enrollment between 100 to 500. So all these colleges are never covered under NIRF. We do not have a perspective on how these colleges are doing vis-a-vis the rest of the colleges. Now, but what we see through the NIRF ranking is a major cluster of good colleges are found in Delhi and in Tamil Nadu. So it's because of the fact that you have this positive externalities. So people talk about clusters in the sense that suppose what is a positive externality? Something like I am in company of good students, and because I am in company of good students, my marks also increase. That is a positive externality that you can get from your peer group. So if you have a good peer group for studying for civils, there is a likelihood that all of you might clear. I'll give you a very small example of this externality. Back in 2011, I was staying with 4 IITians, IIT Kanpur folks, and all of us in that year cleared prelims, and that has a positive externality on the landlord, because the amount of rent that he was seeking had increased in Rajendra Nagar, because that flat became famous that यहाँ पर सबका prelims हो रहा है इस उसमें, ठीक है. So positive externality which was taken up by the landlord, ठीक है. And I'm among the black sheeps of that particular flat, because I'm the only one who did not get selected that in the service. All of them are in service. So there's 3 people in service. Yes. So we are talking about this externality clusters. Economic activity also happens in clusters. But what is more important is for you to take up for your essay and ethics, especially for your essay. There is a famous shlok in Sanskrit. A disciple learns one fourth from the teacher, one fourth from our own efforts, one fourth from fellow students, and one fourth from the course in course of time. And this has been given by Neil Katha's commentary on Mahabharata. So something which you can use in education, something you can use in essay. Note that down and keep it for future reference. So read this article on NIRF, then directly come to news. Report says super rich leaving India. You can probably read that report. That why are super rich leaving India? The reasons are political stability, low taxation, personal freedom. Because of all these factors, the net high worth individuals are moving abroad. And anyways, these folks are very they're very not particular about geographies. They can usually have at times countries offer multiple passports as well. So they usually have multiple passports as well. But what we are trying to say is that the rich and affluent are now leaving India and also China. So these are countries which have politically become a little. I would say. A little more narrow, a little more radical, and that is why a lot of these net worth individuals have started leaving India. Then, very important news, folks. Grain storage plan for government has unveiled. How can it help farmers? So the first thing, data points. We hold 18% of world's population, but only 11% of land, and we feed 81 crore people under the National Food Security Act, and our total food capacity here, it's little 311, but now it's around 330 million tons, and out of that the storage capacity was only 145 million tons. So this data, you need to note that we approximately have only 50% of our capacity of what we produce, which means that a lot of our food grains has to be stored in the open where they get wasted. So, and if you compare it to China, China has more capacity. China produces 615 million tons and it has a capacity of 650 million tons. And on spatial aspect as well, certain states have higher capacity, 90% capacity, but states like Bihar and UP have around 50% capacity. So these are the problems. Now, what is the world's largest grain storage plant? In this, all these organizations where food basically was being help was being taken to store food, all these organizations have come on board, and we are trying to activate a very important part of the cooperative sector, which is PAC, primary agricultural societies, credit societies. We are trying to activate them, and we are trying that there should be 1 lakh packs which should be able to help the country to store this amount of food grains, and the coordination is done by Ministry of Cooperation for prelims. This is something that can be asked in prelims, but the other ministries are Agriculture Ministry, Consumer Affairs Ministry, and Food Processing Industry. Then read about the benefits of the plan, that it will help in inflation taming, it will help in price discovery, it will also help in food price or fair price shops. So all of these are there. Then US Federal Reserve holds the steady rate, sees 2 small hikes by the end of the year. Now the Federal Reserve, despite the fact that the inflation is very high in US, has been able to hold back its federal rate at around 5 to 5.5%. But it says that because what we are expecting in future is a higher inflation, therefore, and we need to reach that level of inflation which is 2%, we need to increase the interest rates by the end of the year. This is what it says. Then there is an article on green hydrogen. Now I'll send you this article from from Business Standard. I want you to read about what is green hydrogen, what is blue hydrogen, and what is grey hydrogen. These 3 are the major types of hydrogen, but the non-polluting and environmental friendly is the green hydrogen. Okay? So read about this. That's about from the express. Let me just first go to business standard. In business standard, folks, there is this article by Sham Saran. Okay, I'll send you this article which talks about that India needs to go truly towards green hydrogen. Now let's first understand what are the other processes. There is a process by which you can produce gray hydrogen. What is this gray hydrogen? You use steam in whichever way that you can produce steam, by burning coal or whatever way that you want to do. You produce steam and you use this steam for splitting it into natural gas, into hydrogen and carbon dioxide. So one process is called steam reforming. Steam reforming, what it does is that it splits your natural gas that is available in nature, and it is being split into hydrogen and carbon dioxide. Now since carbon dioxide is produced, आप steam use करके आप normal gas को convert कर रहे हो hydrogen और carbon dioxide में, because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, therefore we call this process as production of green hydrogen. Then the other thing is called blue hydrogen. ये जो CO2 निकला है, अगर आप एक टेक्नोलॉजी लगा के इसको कैप्चर कर लो और फिर उसको सिक्वेस्टर कर लो, तो आपने जो CO2 प्रोड्यूस किया उसको आपने एनवायरनमेंट में रिलीज नहीं किया. सो वंस यू आर कैप्चरिंग दिस CO2 थ्रू अ मेथड कॉल्ड एज CCUS, कार्बन कैप्चर यूज एंड स्टोरेज टेक्नोलॉजीज. तो अगर आप कार्बन कैप्चर यूज एंड स्टोरेज टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करोगे, जिससे CO2 जो आपने प्रोड्यूस किया स्टीम रिफॉर्मेशन प्रोसेस से, इसको अगर आपने स्टोर कर लिया और एनवायरनमेंट में नहीं जाने दिया, this process will become a blue hydrogen. And what is green hydrogen? When you use electrolysis, where you break water into carbon into oxygen and hydrogen, and this breaking of this process of electrolyzation is using renewable energy. आप solar energy का use करके water का elements को break कर रहे हो into H2 and hydrogen and oxygen. That is what is called as green hydrogen. So read about this. And hydrogen storing is very easy. It's not that inflammable. It's easy. It can easily be transported. So hydrogen के बहुत सारे properties हैं which are written here. But at the same point of time, it is right now a little expensive. You need to invest in this technology so that it becomes much more viable in future, and we have to become a super leader, a world leader in green hydrogen. This is what the article talks about, and it's a very important article for today. Then, coming to the Hindu, there are 2-3 news that are important. The first news is Finance Commission. It will have a tough task. I want you to read this news. It's a very important news. It talks about the fact that a new Finance Commission is going to be set up, the 16th Finance Commission. Now, अभी जो Finance Commission चल रही है वो 15th Finance Commission चल रही है, and the work of a Finance Commission is to basically see two things. How much money should come from the center to the states, because there is an unequal relationship in terms of power sharing and revenue sharing, and how that money needs to be divided among the states. The amount of money that comes from the center to the state is called vertical devolution, and the money that will be distributed among states is called as horizontal devolution. Okay. Now, this particular article talks about that the Finance Commission is going to have a very hard time, the 16th Finance Commission, to increase the share of the central government or increase the share of the state governments, because right now even the center doesn't have money, and we are already giving 41% of the money that the center raises to the states. So the center is completely used up. It cannot give more money to the states. But what can happen is there can be change in the devolution formula at the state level. Now, I had taught this topic multiple times on YouTube, and there was a question this year. If you see this year's paper, there was a question in prelims on this particular topic. Then, apart from that, the states allege that there should be some kind of tweaking in the horizontal distribution formula, because because of the fact that certain states say that they don't receive enough amount of money. Some states say that they are not receiving enough amount of money and they want the formula to be changed. Some states say that you should not use the 2011 population formula because that leads to southern states getting less amount of money and northern states getting more amount of money because of the fact that the population parameter is being used. Then apart from that, one major area of concern is that the center has been relying on two things: the cess and surcharge. Now cess and surcharge are those parts of revenue which the center did not share with the states. It does not become the part of the shareable tax pool. जो 41%, सपोज सेंटर के पास 41% है तो 100 रुपीज़ है तो उसको 41 रुपीज़ स्टेट्स को देने हैं, बट ये वाला जो पोर्शन है सेस और सरचार्ज ये वो 100 रुपीज़ में ऐड ही नहीं होगा, ये सीधा सेंटर के पास चला जाएगा. And the center has been relying on cess and surcharge by a very huge amount. In fact, between 2009 and 2021, 2019-2020, the reliance on cess and surcharge has been so much that its share in the central's tax revenue has increased from 10% to 20%. So this is a major issue. The other issue which the Finance Commission needs to resolve is that of freebies. Which government can, what are the things that the governments can promise and what are the things that the government can't promise because of the fact it doesn't have the wherewithal to finance those. So this is the other issue. The base boost we have already discussed about inflation. Strengthening ICDS program. I want you to read about this ICDS program, and the other program that I want you to read about is the Portion 2.0 program. These are the two programs that I want you to read, and okay, let's you can read these two programs. Apart from that, Russia-Ukraine war, the fallout is that the entire Eurozone, all countries, the entire Europe is now under recession. And what is a recession? Recession is falling output for 2 consecutive quarters. अगर 2 क्वार्टर तक आपका आउटपुट गिर रहा है, नेगेटिव टेरिटरी में है, तो उसको हम रिसेशन बोलते हैं, और अगर 4 क्वार्टर तक हो रहा है तो उसको हम डिप्रेशन बोलते हैं. तो इफ़ यू सी all these diagrams, almost all countries in the Eurozone are in recession right now, and the reasons are given that inflation बहुत हाई है, और बिकॉज इन्फ्लेशन बहुत हाई था तो इसलिए सारे फेडरल रिजर्व, सारे बैंक्स को इंटरेस्ट रेट बढ़ाना पड़ गया. इंटरेस्ट रेट बढ़ाओगे तो कंजम्पशन कम हो जाएगा, इन्वेस्टमेंट कम हो जाएगा, जिसकी वजह से जीडीपी कम हो जाएगा. So all this has been the reason for Eurozone recession. Then remember the article that I was talking about from Business Standard. Now it has already been given in the Hindu. The status of transgenic crops. I want you to read about what are these transgenic crops. What are the different types of BT. जैसे ये green BT है, वैसे एक blue BT होता है, red BT होता है. I want you to read about this biotechnology in different areas. ठीक है. इंडस्ट्रियल एरिया में हम उसको ब्लू, हम उसको बोलते हैं ब्लू, क्या कहते हैं, बायोटेक्नोलॉजी. देन so read this article which talks about Cry2AI gene which has now been introduced to counter a kind of a pest which is called as pink bollworm. जो पहले वाला जो हमारा जो फर्स्ट जनरेशन जो हमारी वो थी, वो अमेरिकन बुलवर्म को टारगेट करता था. Now some state governments have refused to give the state clearance because under the mandate of the law, कहीं पर भी आप फील्ड ट्रायल्स करोगे तो वहाँ पर स्टेट को एनओसी देना पड़ेगा, और यहाँ पर स्टेट्स एनओसी नहीं दे रहे एक्सेप्ट फॉर हरियाणा. So the government is coming up with this area of targeted 42 zones which will be always be trial areas. कि किसी स्टेट के अप्रूवल की ज़रूरत नहीं है, ये 42 एरियाज में आप जिस मर्जी का ट्रायल कर सकते हो. So read about this particular article. It's a very interesting article. Then although not important from your examination point of view, tracing the impact of sugar on health and culture and environment, a good article to read, and something that I am always telling you, cut down the amount of sugar that you are going to have, because that is going to impact a lot in your career as well, because your health is going to be linked to your career. Then finally on the world page, EU lawmakers give nod to plan on blocks future for AI regulation. ठीक है, तो EU has become the first country to is now coming up with AI regulations. AI law बना रहे हैं, जैसे डेटा प्राइवेसी लॉ था इनका GDPR, वैसे ही AI laws बना रहे हैं अभी ये लोग. So read about this article, folks. So that's it from my end, folks. I wanted to end at 6 today. we will be covering our next session on Monday, where we'll cover Friday's newspaper as well as Saturday's newspaper. So Monday's class will be a little longer than what we have today. Okay folks, thank you very much. See you on Monday.